Where's my hair?
Your hair has been destroyed.
You shaved off my hair?
Yes,
Have you ever felt that the world operates on a completely insane logic, yet everyone around you accepts it as perfectly normal? That is the feeling that will haunt you throughout the entire duration of Bugonia, the latest film from maestro of absurdism Yorgos Lanthimos. On the surface, this is a science fiction story about a pharmaceutical CEO named Michelle who is kidnapped by two men, but Lanthimos is never that straightforward. And the deeper you sink into this film, the more you realize that not a single element in it can be easily predicted. Bugonia, a remake of the South Korean film Save the Green Planet by Jang Joon-hwan, is a symphony of the absurd about love that mutates into poison, capitalism that disguises itself as salvation, and blind faith that slowly devours everyone entangled in it. Today, we will dissect the strangeness and absurdity that form the DNA of this film, not merely as an eccentric visual style or the surreal sensibility that has been Lanthimos' hallmark from Dogtooth to Poor Things, but as a scalpel to reveal the horrifying meaning he wants to convey to us all. And believe us, that meaning feels very close to our daily lives, perhaps too close for comfort.
You can't beat me because you are a loser and I am a winner. And that's fucking life.
The first and most glaring absurdity of Bugonia is its very premise. Teddy, played brilliantly by Jesse Plemons, is a conspiracy theorist who is utterly convinced that Michelle is an alien from the planet Andromeda intent on destroying Earth. And to save the planet, he and his cousin Donnie must kidnap and interrogate Michelle, played by Emma Stone. Now, pause for a moment and imagine this premise being presented to you directly. Two men with no scientific background, no military training, and no resources whatsoever beyond a stuffy old house decide that they are humanity's last line of defense against an alien invasion. Our logic as viewers immediately rejects this kind of premise because it sounds like the plot of a cheap B movie. Something you might stumble upon a low-view YouTube channel at 3 in the morning, but this is precisely where Lanthimos plays his trump card, by never turning this premise into a joke or a parody. The film threads Teddy and Donnie's belief with utmost seriousness, with an almost documentary-like gravity, like an observational film about two people experiencing a shared psychotic disorder, or what clinical psychology calls folie-à-deux. Folie-à-deux is a rare condition in which two individuals living in very close isolation reinforce each other's delusions until those delusions become an unshakable shared reality, and in many documented cases, the trigger is often one dominant individual who imposes their belief onto a second person who is more vulnerable and more emotionally dependent. Lanthimos understands this dynamic exceptionally well and pours it into every interaction between Teddy and Donnie.
Tell Teddy that I'm sorry, that I love him.
The strangeness arises from the collision of two entirely different realities. On one side, we have Teddy's world constructed from mystical beliefs, filmsy astrology, and pseudoscience assembled from internet forum, while on the other side there is Michelle's world, which is entirely logical, capitalistic, and full of mathematical calculation. When Teddy interrogates Michelle, the questions he poses are not about her company's evil plan, not about the pharmaceutical scandal being covered up, not about how many lives have been harmed by her drugs with dangerous side effects, but about the Andromedan space fleet, about galactical coordinates, and about exactly when the grand invasion will begin. This is a leap of logic so extreme that it makes us as a viewer laugh and shudder at the same time. Michelle, who from the beginning assumed this was just an ordinary corporate kidnapping that could be resolved through negotiation, responds with the business logic that has been her native language for years. She offered vast sums of money, she promises high position in her company, she even tries to draft a cooperation proposal while tied to a bed. These two conversations run parallel without every turret touching, like two radio stations transmitting signal on completely different frequencies. This is the absurdity of total communication failure, and this is one of Lanthimos' most pure and consistent signatures from film to film. We, as viewers, are forced to stand between the two, witnessing two extreme forms of what is called truth collide, and we cannot bridge them, cannot translate one to the other, cannot shout at the screen to tell one party that they have the wrong target. And the most terrifying part of all this is that the film never provides explicit confirmation of who is right and who is wrong. Lanthimos deliberately leaves that ambiguity hanging in the air because in real life, the line between legitimate belief and dangerous delusion is often as thin as a silk thread, and no giant signposts arrive to tell us on which side we stand. However, the strangeness of Bugonia doesn't stop at the level of dialogue or premise but seeps into every fiber of the production design, every character interaction, and every corner of the room presented on screen. Lanthimos creates a worlds that are equally alienated and mirror each other in a highly deliberate way. Let us dissect them one by one. Michelle's world is the pinnacle of the sterile capitalism that may already be familiar to those of us who have worked in a large corporation. Her office is a labyrinth of glass and metal, so cold it feels like outer space, and this is highly intentional visual irony given that Michelle is accused of being an alien by her captors. Her employees move like pre-programmed robots, walking through identical corridors, sitting in identical meeting rooms, and speaking in hollow corporate jargon. They discuss drug side effects as if they are merely statistics on paper, not real human suffering with names, faces, and families. This is the alienation we recognize in modern life, the paradoxical loneliness in the midst of crowds where human relationships have been reduced to transaction and hierarchies. Michelle may not be an alien in the literal sense, but she has already become alien to her own humanity, already uprooted from the ability to feel genuine empathy, already metamorphosed into something no longer entirely human. Then, we enter the world of Teddy and Donnie, and the contrast could not be sharper. In here, alienation takes a different form from Michelle's world. This is total isolation from mainstream society, a closed ecosystem where obsession is allowed to grow and fester without any intervention from the outside world.
How can you tell them apart?
You have to know where to look.
And now we arrive at the most titillating yet horrifying peculiarity, the care routine that Teddy and Donnie perform on Michelle. At the beginning of the kidnapping, they do not torture Michelle conventionally. There is no beating, no waterboarding, no shouted threats as we usually see in typical kidnapping films. Instead, they feed her awkwardly, try to comfort her when she cries, and speak to her in a strange tone, like someone caring for a very expensive exotic pet, or perhaps like a worshipper tending to a dangerous deity. There is tenderness here that is profoundly misplaced, a feeling that these two captors genuinely believe they are doing something good, something that will ultimately be thanked for. Donnie, in particular, shows a sincere and painful to watch hesitation. He is not fully convinced of this mission. We can see it in the way he avoids eye contact with Michelle, in the way his hand trembles as he spoons food, in the way he bites his lip whenever Teddy speaks with full conviction about Earth's destruction. But Teddy constantly reassures him, saying that what they are doing is right, that Donnie's doubt is natural but must be fought, that this small sacrifice means nothing compared to the billion of lives that will be saved. This is not just a strange and uncomfortable scene, it is a terrifying character study of how perpetrators of violence can feel like empathetic heroes. It is about how violence can be wrapped in suffocating affection and about how kindness can be performed in completely wrong way yet still feel right to those performing it.
The most important thing I want to stress to you right now is I never want to put this behind us. Never.
After dissecting the premise and its world, we now arrive at the most important question. What is all this strangeness and absurdity for? Does Lanthimos simply want to be eccentric? Is this merely a stylish exercise without substance, a showcase of surreal aesthetic with no message to convey? The answer is no. This is precisely where Bugonia becomes utterly brilliant because the film uses the most absurd science fiction mass imaginable, alien conspiracy theories, to deliver the most rational and most urgent critique of the world we inhabit today. Listen carefully to what Teddy actually says in his seemingly insane rambling. He has been collecting evidence for years, yellowing newspaper articles, print out of web pages from dark forums, hand-drawn diagrams connecting one dot to another with the thread. In his amateur investigation, he discovered that Michelle and her company deliberately create disease, deliberately destroy the environment, and that their drugs have horrific side effects yet are still sold for profit. Teddy does sound like a madman when he says it, with eyes blazing wildly and breath coming in gasps, but try asking yourself honestly, what really distinguishes his accusation from the reality of the pharmaceutical industry that we often hear about in investigative news reports? Like giant corporations that ignore drug side effects in pursuit of sales targets, or companies that exploit natural resources until entire ecosystems are destroyed, or cold decisions made in 40th floor boardrooms far from the reach of the cries of human suffering affected by their policies. Michelle is literally an alien from Andromeda. We all know that. But metaphorically, for Teddy and perhaps for us as well, the CEO who make decisions behind those glass towers, so disconnected from reality and untouched by consequences, who can sleep soundly on silk sheet while thousands suffer from the product they sell, are they not indeed like aliens? They are the other entities that seem to come from a different planet, whose value system is entirely incompatible with ordinary human values. Lanthimos cleverly inverts our logic. The madman in this film, Teddy, may be the only character who sees the truth, even though he articulates in it a completely wrong way, with a completely chaotic language, with a completely absurd methodology. His madness lies not in the content, but in the form. He is right about corporate evil, but he is wrong about its cause. He is right that Michelle is a dangerous alien. Herein lies the tragedy of this character. He is so close to the truth, yet so far away at the same time.
Donnie, back up! Sorry.
The second most haunting meaning of this film is about the dynamics of love and power between Teddy and Donnie. Their relationship is the dark emotional core of the entire film, and the more we pay attention to it, the more we realize that this is not merely a partnership in crime, but a case study of a completely toxic relationship. Teddy is a narcissist who needs a follower, someone who has perhaps been rejected by society so many times that he eventually created his own world where he is the center of everything. He possesses a strange charisma, not the charisma of a movie star, but the dark charisma of a cult leader whose gaze can make you feel that only you are chosen, only you are special, and only you truly understand. Donnie, on the other hand, is someone profoundly lonely, who might have spent most of his life feeling invisible to anyone, who is starving for validation and affection at an acute level. We can feel it in every gesture, in the way he always seeks Teddy's approval before making a decision, and in the way he smiles with relief every time Teddy says he is doing a good job. And in the end, this project of saving Earth is actually the distorted love project. Teddy gives Donnie a purpose greater than himself, a sacred mission that suddenly gives his previously empty life meaning, and Donnie gives Teddy the validation he needs to keep believing in his own delusion. This is a toxic symbiosis and ecosystem of delusion that can only survive as long as both continue to believe and feed each other. This is the terror of a man who feels to love. Donnie does all this in the name of caring for Teddy, just as Teddy does all this in the name of caring for Earth. Two forms of the most noble concept of love in human understanding, love for a partner and love for the planet we live on, are twisted and distorted into justification for torture, kidnapping, and ultimately something far darker. This film screams that even the strongest and most dangerous beliefs are often born not from mature political ideology or structured philosophical argument, but from the most basic and most human emotional needs: the need to be loved by someone, the need to be part of something larger than oneself, and the burning need to feel important and meaningful.